What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So we just had our first NHL head coaching firing of the season as Jim Montgomery is out as head coach of the Boston Bruins just like 18 months after winning the Jack Adams. And I'm going to focus. This video is going to be about 10 other head coaches that I think could get fired mid-season or at the end of the season. But just to wrap up Montgomery, if you follow me on other medias, you probably know what my overall opinion is on this. But yeah, Jim Montgomery kind of getting scapegoated by Don Sweeney. It's definitely Don Sweeney's fault more so that this team is struggling. I'm looking at Lindholm and Zadorov, but it's understandable to fire the head coach, then say the general manager midseason, because it's not like some general manager is going to come in and make some massive blockbuster in November that's going to completely change the team. You got to fire the coach. That's the quickest thing to do. And yeah, they were unacceptable. 8, 9, and 3. Their special teams weren't that good. Just everything wasn't clicking for the Boston Bruins. And as a result, Montgomery was obviously going to get fired, even though he had been so successful the prior 2 seasons. I actually tweeted it out in a weird way, like him overperforming his first 2 seasons led to this firing early on, considering the fact that he was such a good coach that they had these high expectations. But yeah, I definitely understand it. Jim Montgomery's going to get a different job, and although I don't like recycled head coaches, rightfully so, he should get another job, and it'll probably be a good hiring by that team. But yeah, it was understandable, and now we are going to look at 10 other coaches that I would not be shocked if they get fired either mid-season or at the end of the season after their playoff runs abruptly get cut short. If they got fired, we got guys like Lalonde, Patrick Waugh, Sullivan, and some other guys you might think that I'm crazy to think that they have a chance of getting fired. But without further ado, let's get into it. And up first, we're probably looking at the guy that is on the hottest seat right now in the NHL, Derek Lalonde. I'm going to give a percentage based on what I think they're going to get fired, what the likelihood of them getting fired mid-season is. And then at the end of the season for Lalonde, in terms of mid-season, I think he's sitting at like 69% chance to get fired mid-season, 83 by July 1st, basically the first day of free agency, because the Red Wings are kind of a disaster right now. They're 7, 9, and 2, despite getting pretty stellar goaltending by Cam Talbot early on. They have the least goals scored in the entire NHL. This comes to us from Wingwheeled Media, a guy that I love on Instagram. The least scored goals in the NHL, least 5-on-5 goals, the worst penalty kill, the worst shot differential. Basically, they are just an absolute tire fire. Their underlying numbers weren't much better last year, but they just absolutely shot the shit out of the puck. Detroit, although they're not cup or bust or even like playoff or bust this season, if they're below 500 for much longer, that is simply unacceptable for a team that did take a sizable step last year with 90 points. It's just unacceptable what's going on right now in Detroit. And Lalonde's been there. This is his 3rd season. It's not like it's his 2nd season. And you can maybe cut him some slack. This is his 3rd season, and they're regressing in massive ways in terms of the on-ice results. So yeah, I think that it's very likely that he gets fired mid-season. I'd be shocked if on July 1st he was still the head coach, because I don't think the Detroit Red Wings are going to make the playoffs this season. He's probably very likely to get fired. Next up, I got Chris Noblock. Again, I'm not saying he's going to get fired midseason. I think there's like a 1% chance he gets fired midseason. They'd have to go on this like 10-game losing streak, because I think at this point they're very likely to make the playoffs. At the end of the season, though, I'd say it's like a 26% chance that he gets fired by July 1st. When looking at it, what would have to happen in this? They'd have to lose in the first round or absolutely get blown out in the second round by Vancouver Canucks or Vegas Golden Knights. But yeah, it's been a little bit underwhelming of a start for the Edmonton Oilers. Really early on, it was very bad. The power play isn't clicking like it did in years past, only 17.3%. And more concerning, the penalty kill that was massive for them making the Stanley Cup final last year is only 68.6%. That is absolutely brutal. Again, I'm not saying it's likely that Chris Noblock gets fired. I'm just rifling through some guys that I wouldn't be shocked if at the end of the season leading into next season, they were fired. This would definitely be a disappointing playoff spot. Say they only finished with like 102 points, are the 3rd seed in the Pacific Division, and lose in the first round. I could potentially see Chris Noblock getting fired. Next up, my head coach, Patrick Waugh. I think there's like a 12% chance he gets fired mid-season. Things would have to go really bad. I'd say that there's a 38% chance he gets fired in the offseason. When looking at Patrick Waugh, he has a 500 points percentage, which doesn't seem that bad on face value when you consider the fact the injuries that they're dealing with to Matt Barzal, Adam Pelech, and Anthony Duclair. But when you consider the fact that it's 7, 7, and 5, they've won 7 games, lost 12 games. Granted, 5 of those are in overtime shootout. That is very underwhelming for a team that had playoff aspirations, and especially when you consider the fact, what did I harp on this offseason? I said, the penalty kill can't get much worse. It was literally the worst in the entire NHL last year at 71%. It's somehow worse this season. 67.5%. The power plays all the way down at 12.3%. The second worst unit in the entire league in both categories. A lot of that it kind of falls on the coaching. So in looking at Patrick Waugh, it has been absolutely disgusting to start this season, even though the points percentage isn't the end of the world, even though the Eastern Conference is up for grabs in terms of that last wild card spot. They're technically in that last wild card spot right now. It has not been good for the New York Islanders, in my opinion, thus far. Again, the injuries do add some context. I think it's unlikely he gets fired mid-season, but I think at the end of the season, especially if Lou Lamoriello is gone, he potentially could get fired. So yeah, 12% and then like a 38% chance that he gets fired at the end of the year. I could definitely see a regime change or just Lou Lamoriello firing off one of his last bullets in his chamber in terms of bringing in a new coach. Mike Sullivan, I say a 31% chance he gets fired mid-season, 92% chance that he's out by July 1st. If he didn't get fired after that Dallas game when they went down 6-0 in the first period, I don't know what it's going to take for him potentially to get fired. Just watch him get fired in the next week or something. But I don't know. I guess Kyle Dubas really likes him. And it is pretty funny. He's the head coach of Team USA at the Four Nations Face-Off. So maybe the league is like, please don't fire this guy. That would be really embarrassing for the league. But yeah, he's survived thus far where like, I don't think he's going to get fired mid-season. They're going to handle like a transition this offseason in terms of moving him out, or maybe he'll just step down and then they'll bring in a new head coach. They're 7-10-4 right now. It is absolutely atrocious. But yeah, I don't really see him getting fired mid-season considering what's it going to take at this point? Is he going to have to lose 5 games in a row from now for him to get fired? I think even if he's like on like 80, 75 point pace the rest of the way, I think they're just going to be like, what's the point of bringing in a head coach? Let's just wait to see what's out there after other guys get fired and go on from there. Let Sidney Crosby kind of weigh in. I'm sure he doesn't want to talk about a potential coaching change mid-season. So yeah, I think he's going to get fired by the end of the season. He's like a near lock to basically be out because if they miss the playoffs for 3 straight years, you can't bring him back. But mid-season might be a little bit tricky. Peter DeBoer. 1% chance that he gets fired mid-season. I'm going to go with a 38% chance he gets fired by July 1st. And similarly to Montgomery, he has done such a good job his first 2 seasons that the expectations are super high right now. Back-to-back Western Conference Finals appearances. So if they lose in the first round, which is possible at this point with the way Winnipeg's playing Colorado, Minnesota. And if they lose in the if you lose in the first round, he's most likely gone. If he's losing the second round, he could potentially be gone. Even if he makes the Western Conference Finals, there's a chance that they say that you can get us to that level, but we need someone to take us to that next level. And in terms of his coaching job this season, it's pretty concerning how Robertson and Hintz look. They have not been going. They've been fine overall as a team, but if they continue to slump, I could see them potentially, Jim Nill, bringing in a new coach to kind of revitalize what was thought to be their 2 star forwards for the future. They have a combined 18 points in 17 games right now. That is absolutely disgusting. Cronin up next. I'm going with a 24% chance that he gets fired mid-season. I'll go with 54 that he's fired by July 1st. When looking at it a couple games ago when they were 4-7-1, it was looking like he might be the first coach fired, but they have rifled off a 4-1-1 record since then. It's been pretty ugly in terms of the underlying numbers. They have a 42.5% expected goals percentage at 5-on-5. Only the San Jose Sharks are worse. All situations that does go up to 44.7%, which is 28th in the entire NHL. Still not good. The only reason that they're like hovering around 500 right now is because of Lucas Dostal. Dostal is saving his job right now. And yeah, there's definitely causes for concern in terms of him being the long-term coach of Anaheim, which is why I think I'd lean towards him potentially getting fired at the end of the season. And it's because some of their young guys, basically all their young guys, McTavish, Mitnyakov, Carlson, all are either plateauing or regressing compared to last season in terms of their offensive outputs. It's not like their underlying numbers are good, as I mentioned before. It is definitely concerning. And in terms of him being the long-term fit in Anaheim, maybe you don't fire him mid-season considering you have a bunch of young guys. You don't want absolute chaos, but I could definitely see them bringing in more of a veteran guy. Cronin he's been coaching for a while, but he was an AHL guy up until the NHL. Maybe you bring in a more veteran guy to kind of lead this team into the next generation and lock the hell in. Andre Torney, 29% chance he gets fired mid-season. I'm going to go with the 72% chance he gets fired by July 1st. I think he'll be able to keep his job throughout the season, considering they did have those 2 massive injuries to their defensemen in John Marino and, why am I blanking on it, Sean Durzi. But when looking at it, yeah, I don't think it's that likely that he gets fired mid-season, especially considering they're a new franchise. You don't want that kind of negative publicity in terms of firing your head coach. But yeah, I think by July 1st, assuming they miss the playoffs, you have a guy that's in his 4th season. He's the 5th longest tenured head coach in the entire NHL, getting hired all the way back in 2021. They were a 77-point team last year. They're 7-8-3 right now after such a good start that if they don't take some if they don't hit at least like 85 points, you're not really taking that big of a step after being so aggressive this offseason, although they did lose one of their big offseason additions. But still, it has been very disappointing ever since game 6 for the Utah Hockey Club. And this guy is one of the longest tenured coaches in the entire NHL. He's not brand new to the scene. As a result, I think that he's probably out by July 1st. Andrew Brunette up next. I'm only going to go with a 31% chance he gets fired mid-season and 47 by July 1st. When looking at it, he's still only in his 2nd year. I don't think Barry Trotz will be as ruthless as maybe some other general managers because Barry Trotz has a lot of job security compared to other guys. So when looking at Andrew Brunette, I think he is a very good coach. The season has been disastrous despite getting good goaltending from Jussi Saros. Their special teams have actually been great. They're 1st in the penalty kill, 10th in the power play. So at least coaching special teams has been very good. The 5-on-5 numbers are just absolutely disastrous. In terms of the actual results, they have a 32.81% goals percentage at 5-on-5. That is disastrous. That is where this team is massively falling. Their underlying numbers are better, but they still sit at only 21st. They sit at 21st with a 49% expected goals percentage at 5-on-5. So they're only going to play better from here. I have no doubts from that. If they don't, he definitely could get fired midseason, considering this team is more so win now. But I still think Andrew Brunette proved enough in his 2022 season with the Florida Panthers, turning around the New Jersey Devils, and last year getting them into the playoffs, that I don't really foresee him getting fired. If he was going to get fired, it would have been like 3 to 4 games ago when they kind of were spiraling. Now they've kind of stabilized, at least to some kind of a degree, and it's hopefully only up from here. So as a result, it's definitely possible because, again, Nashville has a bunch of expectations and pressure on them. But I think Andrew Brunette might be safe because Barry Trotz is Don Sweeney was his general manager. He'd be fired right now. Next up, we got John Tortorella. I am going to go with an 8% chance he gets fired midseason. I'll go with a 21% chance he gets fired by July 1st. The seat has kind of cooled on him after a brutal start. They're 4-1-1 in their last 6 games. And yeah, it's a brutal roster. I put him prior on hot seats just because he has been there for a while. This is his 3rd season. But yeah, it maybe cooled a little bit on that because he has been winning games of late. And yeah, the roster's bad. They're still a young team, kind of rebuilding. I'm not as high on him potentially getting fired as before. When they started out like 1-5-1 and it was a disaster, I maybe saw it. Right now, I'm a little bit cooler on John Tortorella potentially getting fired. And similarly to Barry Trotz, Danny Briere doesn't have a ton of pressure on him right now to potentially bring in a new coach. The Michkov benching is a little bit concerning. I don't like that one bit, but I'm not sure Tortorella is going to lose his job as a result of it. And then lastly, we got Peter Laviolette. I'll go with 1% chance that he gets fired midseason, and I'll go with a 30% chance that he gets fired by July 1st. Again, it's not lucky, but after last year's success in terms of winning the President's Trophy, making an Eastern Conference Finals, the expectations are through the roof right now for the New York Rangers, and they're winning games, but there are some major concerns with this team right now, especially the even strength defense has been a massive concern. Shesterkin and Quick have really made up for that. They're the 8th worst team in terms of expected goals against per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. Again, their goaltending is elevating that, but come playoff time, that could be a major concern. In terms of him unlocking Zibanejad and Kreider, that is a major concern come playoff time. So, though, I do think Laviolette is a very good coach, and I'm only saying 30% chance that he gets fired by July 1st. If they lose in the first round, or if the results are flipped and Carolina takes care of them in the second round, it is definitely possible, or Washington at this point, or New Jersey, it is definitely possible that Peter Laviolette gets fired after just 2 seasons, because also Chris Drury could potentially get fired, and a new general manager could come in. Let me know in the comments, what do you think about this? I forgot to bring it up when I was talking about Chris Noblock, now that I think about it. Stan Bowman also didn't hire Chris Noblock, so that's another thing going against him, that if potentially they disappoint, he could get fired. But yeah, let me know in the comments, what do you think about this? Those are the 10 guys that I think wouldn't be an absolute shock if on July 1st they were out of jobs. Again, most of those guys, I'm saying there's like a less than 50% chance that they do get fired by then. But let me know in the comments, what do you think? And I'll be seeing you in the next one.